Hey guys, it's Claire, and welcome to In the Real, the podcast that provides a safe space to talk about whatever we want with absolutely no judgment. And today, finally, I have Mike Thigpen on the podcast. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Claire. I'm doing great. Finally, that's the term of the year. Finally.
Yeah, Mike and I actually planned to do this like 6 months ago or something like that.
It was definitely pre-COVID.
We had this scheduled for like a Wednesday, and that was the week that we had to leave school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was so upset. I was like, the one person, if I can't get anyone else, the one person I wanted was Mike. And I always tell this to everyone.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you this. I feel special because of that comment right there. So
You should always feel special. Everybody loves Mike.
oh, well, you make me feel special. I remember coming to my office and seeing a note you put and said, I miss your voice. And I was like, oh man, how special is that? So thanks
Yeah.
for making me feel special and always reaching out, as well. So thanks for that. I'm
Yeah,
glad to be here with you.
yeah, for people who don't know, I love your voice. Like, I don't know what it is. It's so soothing. And like, I guess I didn't realize it until we were in chapel last fall. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not very religious, so I don't particularly pay attention in chapel. But when I heard your voice, I was like, why do I understand the message? And like, I'm just like, why do I get it?
Well, praise God for that. So it's all about this tone. I have this knowing that.
You just like plan your voice.
Yeah, it's like, I speak Claire. That's what it is. I speak Claire,
I don't get it.
and my kids will probably say, listen, that voice right there probably not as comforting, not as,
No, not at all, especially probably when they're getting yelled at.
Yeah, we're like, hey, take out the trash. What are you doing? But I'm glad you know how to make a person feel special. So thank you.
Thank you. I love that. But
So what's going on? We're here. We're here. It's Claire's world, universe.
Claire's universe. It's Claire's universe, and we're all just living in it.
Hey, it's all good. It's a good world. It's a good world.
It's a good world. But yeah, so if you guys don't know who Mike is, and I wrote it down so I could say your whole title. There's a lot. He is the Chief Diversity Officer, Director of the Cultural Resource Center, and Multicultural and International Student Services.
Yeah, that's
a
a
lot of things that you do right there. But yeah, so what exactly is the Cultural Resource Center, and what do you do?
Okay, so in my position, and so the Chief Diversity Officer is a new position, and it gives me an opportunity to be a part of cabinet and to represent diverse student populations on our campus, and also to offer the cabinet some of my expertise or experiences and things that I've studied, read, have grown in, like a life experience to them, so that they'll be able to make decisions that will impact the whole institution, and especially for those diverse populations. So let's talk about the diverse population. So the Cultural Resource Center is kind of a hub for that. It's a place where everyone, like, I love the fact of how you introduce this podcast about a place where people can come without judgment. And that's what the Cultural Resource Center is. It's a place where students can receive resources, have conversation, build community, and it's a place for everyone. Most times people think, oh, that's just for the diverse population of students at Anderson University, but the reality is really for every student, a place where everyone belongs. If we were a TV show and we had to pick one TV show that we could be, or use a theme song for any TV show, most people say, would it be Friends? No, maybe not. But we would be probably more like Cheers, a place where everybody knows your name,
Yeah,
and always glad that you came, that kind of thing. So we try to create that environment and whatnot. Some people are gonna be upset because Cheers was a bar, but anyway, it was more than that going on. Okay, there's a storyline there. It's kind of old school too.
No, yeah, I know Cheers.
See? Wow, see, this is what I'm talking about.
Man, Boston.
Boston, that's right. So, but yeah, that's the environment there. So we have students from all walks of life, racial background, religious background, gender, and identity. So it's really a good space for our campus where people can converge It's kind of like what I like to call the New York subway of AU.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I didn't realize being a freshman last year. I mean, I'm kind of accelerated, but at that point last year, I was a freshman. And hearing you speak in chapel, you were like, you guys can come to my office whenever, if you need anything. And I went past it a couple times. I'm like, no, I don't think I should go in there. Like, it's not really for me, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it's the cultural resource center. And like, I'm white. Like let's get the cat out of the bag here. And I walk in, and of course, I'm the only white person in there, but not once did I ever feel like I wasn't welcome.
Thank you. Wow, that's a compliment, and that's a compliment to the student population that gathers there, because what you just described is what most students feel, or they say, well, it's the cultural resource center. No, we all have culture. We all
Yeah.
have been socialized or exposed, and so I'm glad that you took the risk. See, now that's bravery. Let's talk about that for a minute. Most times it's the first step saying, well, he said that, but does he really mean that? And so, but then you took the step and said, okay, I know I'm going in here. And that's what I love. And not only did you go in, but you left a note to say, I've been here. I love, I love that. I came, I saw, and I wrote. And that, was, as a gift to us and whatnot. And that's how we grow as a people. That's how we grow as in humanity. It's just by taking some risks to go into uncomfortable places. And I'll say that because that's what it is most times. It's like, it's unfamiliar, and unfamiliar is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you and the students who were there who allowed you to feel that, hey, this is a space for me.
Yeah. No, I was like walking in that very first time, I was like, and I would never know after one tiny experience how anyone of color would ever feel, because that was not my experience, and I understand that. But I'm like, well, this is probably how they would feel, just like walking into AU is a very white university. And like, I personally haven't experienced or seen racism, but I know it exists. I'm not, blind to that. I know it's there, but like, the fact that I was able to walk in and people weren't biased just because I wasn't we're all the same, but still, like I was able to go in and everyone was just so nice and welcoming and friendly. And I think that's how it should be, and how I wish that it was portrayed for everyone who's not white, but that's just not the experience. And it just really sucks that that's not always how it's going to be.
Yeah, that's powerful what you just said, and I would agree that feeling that you had, that your experience was different than maybe what you felt initially. You're like, I don't know how they're going to receive me. That's not always the same for our diverse populations. They walk into spaces where they're not always received, and so that's why we try to cultivate that a different mentality in the Cultural Resource Center. But also, I believe that that's going to happen across our campus eventually, where students will go anywhere, and it won't be, I'm a Black student, I'm an Asian student, I'm a gay student, I'm a Muslim student, no, it'll just be that I'm a student at AU and I belong here because this space is for everyone. And so that's my ideology. That's my hope. It's always creating a space for somebody who didn't know that there was a seat available for them. So yeah, that's good stuff right here. I'm loving this.
Yeah, another thing I did notice, like I frequently go there. You're usually not in your office at the time I go. We just we're always playing like phone tag, but like room tag,
Yeah, and part of that is it's interesting. Because of my role at the school, I'm in a lot of meetings, whether it's for the Department of Student Life or our Mosaic team or other spaces, student concerns and things like that. So it kind of keeps me occupied from meeting to meeting, and then meeting with students. And so the best thing to do, and I always tell students, like, set an appointment, like right now. So we're meeting this 4:30. You set your appointment, and that's what happens. I wish when I first started at the university, it's so crazy. I guess they didn't know that I knew how to do meetings. So I didn't have a whole lot of meetings on my calendar. So I spent like all my time with students. It was amazing. It was like probably the best part of so I would literally have meeting with students in the morning, go to lunch with students, come back. And the only meetings I really was doing were within the Cultural Resource Center. But I think they figured like, okay, and with Department of Student Life, but they figured, oh, he's getting his feet wet, he's trying to figure it out. Man, once the meeting started, they did not
Yeah.
stop. So it's kind of crazy, but I believe the best part of my job is interacting with you guys. It makes, if I couldn't do that, or I didn't believe the work that I was doing was leading to that, it would make it very difficult. Very
It certainly puts a face to the name. You know what I'm saying? Like if
that.
you weren't able to interact with students as much as you do, I don't think we would understand the impact of what you do.
Thank you. Wow, that's deep. That's okay, Claire. I hear you.
No, what I've noticed though about the CRC is like going in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Black people, and I don't want but like I don't want everyone new coming students to think, oh, it's the Black population of school. Like there's a lot of Hispanic people from different like ethnicities and cultures within the Hispanic. I don't know the terms. I'm just, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's good. Within the Hispanic community, so so some people say Hispanic, some people say Latina, Latino, Latinx. Those are terms, all those terms. But most it's not just Mexican. It's people from Peru.
No, I hate when people say it's just the Mexicans. I'm like, most people aren't from Mexico. There's more places.
Exactly.
In the Spanish-speaking world than just Mexico.
Exactly. Mexico, Latin America, all across the globe. And that's part of like being in that space, because that's when you start to understand that, those who are from DR, Dominican Republic, or from Puerto Rico, or, other places, you say, oh no, we have different ways of doing things. And even them celebrating national holidays, it's like, oh no, we celebrate it this way.
Yeah.
Like a quinceañera for one group is different than another group. Even though it's the celebration of a daughter who's turning 15, it's still different the way that they bring it together. So that's what we discover in the CRC. Is like, you sit there and you think you know people.
You don't
know people until you sit there. So, and spend time with them. But that's bravery. That's big bravery to, even venture out. Because we all like our comfort zones,
Mm-hmm.
We all like in my house, there's a temperature that my wife likes, and there's a temperature that I like, and they are polar opposites, okay? Mm-hmm. And when I say polar, I mean polar. It's like, I'm like, okay, can we get a little heat here, please? Can we get a little heat? But you know what? And so we're comfortable in those spaces, but then when we have to adjust for the climate, mm-hmm. and it's important that we're able to make those adjustments, So I think I've been like that most of my life, kind of just learning to adjust to climates.
One of my best friends, Taylor, she frequents the CRC all the time. She works there. I grew up with her, and she was.
I know that.
Yeah, no, I've known her since I was born.
Really?
Yep, she's been
our Taylor
since I was born.
Our Taylor? Are you serious?
Yeah, No, yeah.
Okay.
And like growing up, like she was one of my only non-white friends because she's half Puerto Rican. And I never really understood that growing up. I'm just like, oh, that's Taylor. So when someone would make fun of her or say racist things or call her Mexican, which just, it pisses me off when people say that. I'm like, she's not. It wouldn't make sense to me because I'm like, that's just Taylor. Mm-hmm. And like, we've known each other forever. And so like going to school together again, it's like weird to see her finding her own identity and being comfortable because she's had to face so much being mixed,
Yeah, that's powerful. What you just said too is that your relationship transcended racial identity. Mm-hmm. So you were able to pick up some of the like that burden of that. That's why it made you upset because she you knew that she was more than you. Not only was she more than what they were saying, she wasn't even what they were saying.
Yeah.
And so
at least get it right.
Yeah, exactly. And so
someone get it correct.
That's right, get it correct. And so and Taylor is very vocal and she's very clear about her identity.
Always been vocal, especially in arguments with me.
Okay, and you know what? And that's good. It's good because that's how we grow, is through those the conflict, the rub of life. And so I love that. I love, man, that's amazing. That's our Taylor. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So,
she would probably hate me for saying this, but whenever she would come over to my house and we'd get
uh,
into like a little argument because we fought all the time as kids. Like we were so close. We were almost like sisters, how close we were.
wow,
And
wow.
we'd get into an argument. She'd go in my bathroom and take my hairbrush, start brushing her hair, and be like, I'm leaving. But then she'd never leave. But every time I was convinced that she was leaving and I'd start crying. I'm like, no.
Hey, listen, I love this. This is good. This is good. But you
Yeah.
know what? I'm glad that you have a friend like that. So many people are not exposed.
Hmm.
They don't have other friendships and relationships that's outside of their own, or that make them feel
Hmm.
a little uncomfortable. So you get that where people kind of live in a bubble, and
Yes.
so you've had some exposure, and it changes your view of the world around you.
I
And
think
the
I'm always
more,
getting exposed because, like,
yeah,
I mean, I was very privileged. I grew up in a very white neighborhood, and I went to, I went to public school, but then I was homeschooled in private school, and so a lot of the people that I was exposed to were in that upper class category
mhm,
or very prim and proper. And so when
yeah.
I went to high school, I went to Anderson High School, and it's completely different. The whites are the minority, and so
Uh,
I got
uh,
to see different walks of life and how like the stigma is black people are criminals and like Mexican Hispanic people aren't very smart, and you go to school and you see that that's not always like it's not true. Like white
yeah.
people are just as dumb as everybody else, if not dumber.
So that's when you talk about stereotypes, and
Yeah,
that's what we do.
stereotypes are really like you learn all about them in high school.
Yeah, we build them, we build the stereotype, and then we try to live them out.
Hmm.
Or, in not only that, living them out, but sometimes people try to push people into those boxes.
Yeah.
So we create the box, we put people in the box, and then we expect them to live them out. And when they don't, we become angry at that, because hold up, you don't belong here, you didn't fit here, you're not supposed to be the valedictorian, you're not supposed to be the star athlete and whatnot. You're not supposed to be this. You're not supposed to be able to sing. Just like you look at somebody like Adele. When I love her voice. I think she has a great voice and
Yeah.
whatnot. But when you first hear Adele, you're like, oh, I hear her and whatnot. And then when we saw the old Adele, because
Yeah.
Adele has changed a little bit. But when we first saw her, I was like, I love that, because I was like, she doesn't look like what they would try to make her be.
Exactly.
And I was glad about that. And so I think the worst thing we can do with people is to relegate them to a stereotype, to
Hmm.
say, if you're going to be this, you've got to do it this way.
Hmm.
I don't think God created us that way. I think that God, in His infinite wisdom, have made us much like a mosaic. That we're so differently shaped, shaded experiences, but we add to this beautiful work, tapestry, if you would, of what the world can be. And so, yeah. So I'm grateful for that experience you had, because imagine if you had just gone to um, private school, or just had been homeschooled, you wouldn't have, been able to pull from your experiences. And to be honest, once you leave AU, you're going to work in a world that is so diverse that you'll be like, well, hold on, I never knew anyone from here or there,
Yeah.
and you'll be like, okay, now I do,
Mhm.
now I. So that's good stuff,
Yeah.
man. I'm glad to be here.
In homeschool, the people that like weren't white were adopted, and so they were,
Mm,
brought up as white. You know what I mean?
socialize, yeah, yeah,
It's just so interesting the different cultures and ethnicities you see within people of even the same color. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
just
Oh yeah,
and
oh
how
yeah.
the stereotypes just they're not correct usually.
They're not. They're not. Listen, I'm not like any black man I know,
Not at
right?
all.
Exactly. I'm not. I'm really not. And so I have a brother, and we are different. We communicate different. We have different experiences, and all sorts of things like that. But he's an awesome man, and I have friends who are awesome men. But everybody has their unique characteristic, their unique thing, their unique style. And so we have to allow ourselves to experience people. So every time we meet someone, so the danger sometimes is like, I know somebody who's Asian, so I think this Asian person is just like that Asian person that I know. No, this Asian person is going to be totally different, because they have a different life experience. And that experience is going to cause them to speak differently, to think differently, to act differently, and to be themselves. And we have to say, that's good enough. I don't need you to be like this person, because Lord, please, the world does not need another Michael Thigpen, because
I
that's
mean, I would
dangerous.
be fine with two of you.
You're good. You're good for me. You're good for me. Listen. Most people, I'm telling you, ask my family, they're like, listen, this guy likes things a certain way, and because I can see me fighting myself. No, the cup should be here. No, the cup should be there. It'll be a whole conversation. So
Yeah.
I won't do that to the world. But no, I am super glad to even have this conversation, because we're living in a world where race is a major component and issue that we're dealing with. I know I'm the guest and whatnot, but I want to ask a question. Can I do
Yeah, please.
that?
This is all about
So,
you today.
yeah. Hey, listen. Hey, we just gonna make it happen. We're having this conversation. How are you feeling with the um I want to call the temperature of our nation and our world right now? How are you feeling with what's happening in society?
Like COVID and like the Black Lives Matter and election.
Black Lives Matter, election, all those things. What's going on in your mind as a student, as a white woman who has been exposed in this whole world? How are you feeling?
I mean, I hate politics because it's just annoying. Not everyone's gonna have the same opinion, which is good. I feel like I hate when people just like agree on everything. I'm like, we're here to disagree,
Yeah.
you know? Like we
Mhm.
don't always have to think the same thing. And I mean, I'm pretty much in the middle on a lot of things. Like
Yeah.
how I feel about people is I feel like people should be treated equally, you know? But
Mhm.
then again, there's certain like Republican sides of things where I'm like, I agree like money wise on some of the things happening and like
Mhm.
economically and things like that. But I just hate when people are just arguing and things like that.
Yeah.
Like with the 2016 election, after Trump won, people were protesting and like burning down cities. And I'm just like, this is not how we're gonna be united. Like it's the United States, but it's very not united. And
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the same thing kind of happened again before the election. And obviously, we know the results is that Biden won as of right now, as of everything stays the same. And I mean, not that I'm particularly for either candidate. Like there's things about them that I disagree with and things that I don't particularly disagree with. But I mean, I was unhappy with the results. I would have preferred a third person, though I did vote for Trump in this
Mhm.
situation just because there's just the Democratic Party, some of the things that they go about, how they go about things is just not particularly how I would run a country. But I mean, I was upset and I complained for a day and I said, you know what? Well, this is what we have. I'm not going to spend
Yeah.
4 years complaining because some good will and can come out of this. And I mean, we're going to do better if we just, we're not worried about it, Like we
Yeah.
need to work on ourselves and let the country figure itself out within its own government.
Yeah, and that's a piece of it. That the responsibility of each person is that when you go in that booth, you vote the way that your heart leads you,
Hmm.
and then when you come out of that booth, the responsibility is then to be responsible, one, for your vote, and then two, to move things forward in the right direction. And so often we look at the president as the official of everything that happens and whatnot. But the president can't do anything without, the rest of the government.
Yeah.
And so it matters who's in those seats, who the senator is, who, governor is, all these different people, all the way down the line to local officials. And so it's important now that we have people in place. Now we got to be a part of the process to be activists of sorts when it comes to the political process, to say, hey, this is what matters to people. And that's where we often get lost. We get caught, we get relegated to sides. And I like what you said there, you're not totally 100% here and 100% there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where most people fall. They fall somewhere in the middle. They may not agree with all of a party or all of this, but they have things they kind of, I want to say, cherry pick from both sides. You've heard it said, that this is a purple state, so I'm not, we're not red, we're not blue, we're in between, and that's usually where people fall. But then after it's all said and done, we've got to get out and we've got to be a part, and we have to speak up for those um, who are marginalized and those who are not treated with the humanity and the respect that they need to receive. And so that's what makes I think our country great, is when we do work the process. And so it's a lot of chaos going right now, but I'm glad to hear where you are. That you're like, okay, I'm not going to spend 4 years
Yeah.
going around this block. I'm now going to like, okay, this is what it is, and this is what we're going to do. And
I mean,
so
my vote is a losing vote, but I mean, you know, this 4 years isn't going to mean too much. I mean, in the next 4 years, that's when things are really going to start happening,
mhm,
and
mhm,
depending on who gets voted in next. So I'll worry
yeah.
about it again in 4 years. I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
And so, I mean, there's so many things on the table, of course, climate control and all these different things, how do we move forward? But we just got to move, and sometimes, we think, we're just being a standstill. No, time is going to move. And it's just literally 4 to 8 years, depending upon what's going on, what may happen. But those 4 years, time is still going. I think about all the presidents I've seen in my lifetime. There's some I can tell you about, and some I don't remember, because I wasn't engaged in the process. And so this will pass. But what the question is how do we help people?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Government will change, people will change, seats will change. It'll be this, who will have the House, Democrats, Republicans, who's going to have the House this time. And all of that may change from back and forth, but how do we impact the people that we encounter? And I think, that's the greatest work of people, is to impact people. So yeah, anyway, I'm preaching now.
No, you're great. I mean, you're a preacher. That's one of your jobs. So
Yeah, you know what? And I always crack people up. I said, I can catch myself when I'm talking. I'm like, I'm in a flow now. I'm kind of like doing this, and so I want to pause myself sometimes because I was like, maybe they didn't sign up for the sermon today. But I love what we can do as people, man. I feel like if people were not a part of my process, I don't even know what that would be like for me. I believe I want to help people to one be better, and I believe people help me to be better. I've seen what happens when you rely on each other and you work together. Great things come out of that, even when you don't agree on everything.
mhm.
I know you know that firsthand. Everybody knows that. You don't have to agree on everything, but if you're willing to do the work, we can always land in a good place. Yeah.
And so, like, the Black Lives Matter movement has
Mhm.
been a huge part of 2020.
Yeah.
How has that affected what you do?
Okay. So I think for me, the Black Lives Matter movement. When I talk about the movement, I talk about the sentiment, um, the history, and all of those things that come along with it. I think, without a doubt, I think people have become more aware of the inequities that we have in the world, and they show up in every system. And that's the sad thing, is that people are becoming aware, but these things have happened all a long time. When we hear about like the death of George Floyd, that was like traumatic for most of Americans, because they were like, man, they'd never seen a person um, be treated that way in a national, environment, or in television. But for most people of color, they've seen it before,
Mhm.
so it wasn't a new occurrence. It was a reminder. And I've heard some people say that they felt defeated, um, a sense of defeated, when they witnessed it yet again. If Back in 2016, there were a lot of unarmed persons that were killed, and during that time, I remember putting up a poster and just all these photos of all these different people, because so often we forget the humanity of people. I see the same thing happening with COVID. We're at a quarter of a million people have lost their lives to during this pandemic. A quarter of a million. And after a couple of days, it just becomes a number. and we forget this was somebody's father, somebody's mother, somebody's uncle, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's cousin, somebody's grandma. These are people, and that they had stories, that they had Christmases and Thanksgivings and Easters, and that they were at the wedding of someone and the birth of someone, and they went to somebody's funeral, they lost someone they loved, they got to hold a baby for the first time, and we forget the humanity of people, and they just become a number. And in 2016, I saw that these a large number of unarmed African American men and women who lost their lives, and I wanted to humanize them. So we did little poster cards with their names and their story before they were just a victim. And I think Black Lives Matter has brought that back to the surface, that people who are Black in this country, that they have stories, and their stories should not be relegated or mistreated anyway. And so that's how it's impacted me. Those are my words today. Other people have other sentiments and whatnot. There's also the organization. I think the movement itself and the sentiment is larger than the organization itself. The organization has its purpose, but the sentiment, as a Black man, for somebody to say, "Hey, Mike," and I feel that with you, that you would be impacted if I wasn't me and I wasn't there. If today or tomorrow, some travesty happened to me, that something familiar to like George Floyd, you would probably, I believe this, Claire, I'm just going to put this on you. I hate to put that, and I pray this never happens, but I believe you would be one of those persons who would be on the front line, who would be like, you know what? No, I knew Mike Thigpen, and this is how I feel. And that passion that you have for me, or for other, Black men or Black women that you may have around you in your life, is kind of what we're hearing fill into the streets, because people are starting to realize, yo, that could have been my dad, my mom. It's wonderful, it's beautiful when I see Hispanic and Asian and white and people from other countries, I mean from China, who are holding up signs saying Black Lives Matter. What in the world is going on? And I believe that comes from a place where people are saying, it's not about other lives don't matter. It's not that my Hispanic life, exactly. It's not that my Hispanic life doesn't matter, my Asian life doesn't matter, my white life doesn't matter. No, it's not about that. It's about right now in this moment, I see people who are devalued. And so that's our fight, is to bring back the value to humanity, that everybody's life does indeed matter. But it's been said multiple times, and I hate to be repetitious, but all lives don't matter until Black lives matter, because you can't say all until Black lives are. Exactly, until Black lives, because you can't say all. So I can't say I have all the pins, and I know I don't have all the pins, because you got some pins too, right? So no, I can't say all the pins, right. Matter of fact, all my pins, I said pins because I have pins on my desk. So the first thing came to mind. Anyway, but all my pins don't write, right? So I can't say all the pins right. That would be a lie, because I know unless I test each pin and ink comes out of it, all pins don't write. So we need to get to a place where every life has the same value and has the same access to everything. Education, finances, housing, health, all those things. And so that's the tension that we're in. So I hope I answered that question.
Oh yeah. The only unfortunate thing with the Black Lives Matter movement is that they should have, but like, lives of Black people should have always mattered, and like it just really sucks that we have to say now they do.
Yes.
Because that's clearly, like, I don't know, I think it's hypocritical.
Yeah, I would agree. The issue with it is that the historical systematic oppression that Black people have experienced in this country, and listen, they're not the only ones. I know people from Asian descent, people from Hispanic descent, Latin descent, all of those groups have experienced some type of oppression. Women have experienced oppression. And so we can look at all of these spaces where people have been relegated and separated, and we can say, man, this is difficult, but Black people are the only group who have come here and been enslaved for the longest period of time, and yet and still, when they were freed, still not given the same access that other groups have eventually gotten in time. When we look at, the right to vote, when women got the right to vote, Black women were still behind them,
I know.
and they partnered with women to do it, but then it was still behind them. And so we look at our historical perspective. And so my prayer is that we will be in a place that I don't want us to forget these moments, because they say history repeats it. I don't believe history totally repeats itself, but there are nuances of history that we can kind of see again and again that show back up when we tend to forget the process of getting where we're going. And so it is unfortunate that that we have to now say, hey, for a minute. And most people say, well, today we'll deal with Black lives, tomorrow we'll deal with the Hispanic lives, after that we'll deal with gay lives, and we'll deal with listen, no, we're going to deal with this group of people. And from this, I believe it's a catalyst that causes everyone to see, it's like if we heal this, everything else follows.
Yeah.
And I believe that's where our healing comes from, is when we fix the oppression that we have experienced, people of color have experienced here in the country. We say, okay, we're going to heal, we're going to admit, we're going to, it happened, it's like, let's talk about it. Slavery happened, okay? It happened. Now that slavery has happened, there was some wrong done, there's some forgiveness, there's some repentance, there's some restoration. And after we get through the place of restoration, healing comes. And I believe that healing is going to impact our country greatly. But it's going to take all of us doing it, all of us doing the work, everyone. So
yeah. I feel like people forget that they're human rights. Like, just because someone's Black doesn't mean they're not a human.
Yeah.
We're all part of one big race in the long run.
Exactly. And the reality is that, we know that the difference between all races is melanin, this thing that has an impact on eye color, has an impact on skin color. And that if you remove all that, we're basically the same.
All skin and bones underneath it all.
Exactly. And that's it. It's all, it's flesh and bones. And so when we, get to that place, but we lose that for some reason. I have no idea why we lose that. And most of that is about power, authority, and structure. We put these structures in place. We put race in place and economics. And so that's why we relegate people to poverty and all those other places. So yeah, we've got work to do.
Yeah, I just don't know why it matters. Like, obviously everyone matters, but I don't know why it matters so much that we have to fight the system that we're fighting for, if that makes any sense at all.
I might ask you to expound that a little bit, but I think you I think I know what you're saying, and I'll try to pontificate on what I think you're saying. Why do we have to fight so much? What I think the reason we have to fight so much is because systems that were set up excluded intentionally.
Yeah.
And so when you build something, it's going to work the way that you built it to work. And unless you reassign or reconstruct, you're going to always get the same result. And so we say, hey, let the ice maker make hot chocolate. Not going to work. An ice maker is going to make ice. And so I think the systems that we have in place, the infrastructure, the way that we were constructed as a nation was created to produce something. And that's what we see. And so we keep hoping for something else. So we sit at the refrigerator and we keep pressing the ice button, waiting for hot chocolate to come out. Be like, dude, that's not the right machine. You're going to have to rebuild that. You're going to have to put in hot chocolate, a heating element, a heating system and whatnot. You can use the same box, okay? Use the same box. You can even use the same buttons. There's certain things you can use, but in order to get something different out, we're going to have to put something different in. And that's why we're fighting. There's a fight inside of us as a country because we don't want to be that. Listen, our nation does not want to be known as racist or separatist or inequitable for people. We don't want to be known for that. But so there's we don't want to be identified with that, but we're not willing to do the work to change the infrastructure to make it easier for people. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in school it should be taught more like about other people's culture and not just like the white experience. You know what I mean? Because it's not always about the white experience.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that we elevate one over the other and whatnot. It's kind of like a family where you have a mom and a dad, and you know everything about your dad's family, but nothing about your mom's family.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know all your relatives, you know, on your dad's side. When you go to Christmas, you go to your dad's family, Thanksgiving, your dad's family, and then you say, "Well, mom, you got people too, right?" And I'm like, yeah, I got people and whatnot, but I kind of almost made a decision to go with your dad, and that's kind of how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get the full family. I believe that as a nation, there's a full family, but when we look at textbooks, we go in the classroom, we only get to hear the story of dad. We don't get to hear the story of mom. We don't get to hear the story of how these two came together and all the people who connect to them that makes us a family. And I totally, yeah, we got to do better with that.
I think the first time I saw like someone not white in a textbook was in high school Spanish class.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm
Now,
like, it's not like not every one of your neighbors is going to be white and rich and whatever. Like,
mm-hmm.
it's just not it.
Now, and you'll be interesting enough with that. Would you believe that textbooks are shaped based upon the geographic area that you're in? So textbooks. I used to work in a middle school, and the textbook had a portion about Indiana. Why? Because we're in Indiana. So it's important we gotta do that. You probably have that textbook at some point, but and so who knows? But I would say even in that textbook, it only talked about certain aspects of history. It didn't go into depth to tell the full story. But if you go to places like more diverse places, the textbooks are a little bit different, but it still gives prominence to the majority culture. And so that's how we get socialized. And that's what we believe. People just don't come to these thoughts by themselves. When you I've used to be, I'll never forget, I used to work for a camp. I worked at a Jewish
oh my gosh.
resort. It was in upstate New York. It was called Kutcher's. Okay.
Okay.
And every year I went to Kutcher's and I served and I was a part of that community and during the summer. And I met this wonderful family from Canada, Jewish family. They had two sons, Tobin and Aaron, and those two little boys, they fell in love with me. Just fell in love with me. Because at night, as families, we would do the camp during the day, but families wanted to go out. They wanted to go to dinner. They wanted to go dancing, whatever they wanted to do in the evening. And so we would get the job assignment of sitting. And the boys, while they were there for their weeks, they always asked me to sit with them because they was like, he's so fun, And they were little. They were like, I think Aaron was 5 and Toby might have been 7. And their family literally. And I don't know if they had ever been around another African American male before, but their heart was just like it didn't matter to them.
Yeah.
They liked our interaction. They had fun, and I'll never forget that family offered me to come and work for them in Canada. And I was a senior in high school, and I had that moment of like, oh, do I want to start a whole new life in Canada? And of course, God had something else in store for me, and I love those boys dearly. I still have a picture in one of my books downstairs of them when they were just young guys. They gotta be in their 30s now, but just that kind of stuff. So these kids were not socialized to have some of the stereotypes and the bias that we see every day. And that's the thing. We structure that because of the history, because of all those things. So yeah, it's a challenge.
I makes me so happy because my mother's side of her family's Jewish, so
Okay.
you don't get a lot of that around here.
Oh, you do not hear that a lot in Indiana, but let me tell you, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I went
I've
to
never guessed that.
okay, yeah, oh yeah, that's exactly I'm a New Yorker.
I don't hear it.
And like most people hear when I say things like water, and they're like, oh,
It's like
you know,
Northeast something.
yeah. And so, but yeah, grew up in Brooklyn. I went to a high school predominantly in a Jewish community.
Yep.
One of my good friends, I told her story not too long ago. Actually during was a chapel or something I was sharing. Her name was Stephanie Trubisky, and so like that's if there is a Jewish name, that's definitely a Jewish name. And she was
Oh
one of
yeah.
my dearest friends. And her family, I spent time with them. We ate meals together. First time I ever had official Chinese. I'll say official because at Chinese restaurants, like you go pick up some, fried rice or lo mein or whatever. I'd always pick it up and go. But they took me to the first restaurant where I actually sat down. They put tea on the table and everything,
I know
and I
those are
was
so cute.
yeah, all right. But this was a family I spent a lot of time with. So I got to be to get socialized to people who were different than myself. But that didn't happen really into high school because I spent most of my time as in elementary school and middle school in predominantly African American schools. It was either African American or Latino schools. So most of my classmates were Puerto Rican, actually, to be honest, Puerto Rican, Dominican, or Black, and that was what I was exposed to. But in high school, I got a whole new world experience and got to meet people that I would have never met had not have been had the opportunity to go to this performing arts school in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So I have a very strong connection to the Jewish community, and
Very
even
big
as,
in New York.
yeah. And then there's this guy named Jesus. So yeah, have a really strong connection to the Jewish community. So just saying. But yeah. So that's kind of my story. Man, this
Yeah.
is good. This is good.
Yeah, a little history lesson. My grandmother from my mom's side, like her parents were first generation immigrants here in
Wow.
America. So my great grandfather or great, whatever the great is,
Okay.
he actually was in Auschwitz and he escaped to America.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
I wouldn't be
Now
here if
that's
the
a
Holocaust
story.
didn't happen.
That's a story. I mean, that's a serious, I mean, and there's I always say there's a strong connection between the Jewish community and the Black community, um, just
We
because of
get it.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes we don't lean into it as well as we should.
Mhm.
But yeah, that type of that type of suffering. We took some students to the African American History Museum in Washington D.C. last year, and some spent the whole day there, and then the next day when they had their free time, they went to the Holocaust Museum because these stories of people who have been oppressed but who continue uh, to outlive their oppressors and their oppression. So
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing that we can do. It's one thing to outlive your oppressors,
Mhm.
but the oppression, the mental oppression, the ability to think past that, this is where I'm confined. I don't have to be confined to this. I can move past it. I can live above it. And so, yeah. So anyway, I think that's a good thing right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll never know exactly. I didn't grow up Jewish. My brother grew up a little bit, but then we were in church, like it was,
Yeah.
we just,
Yeah.
in Indiana, there's not really temple unless you're going to Indy. So I didn't
Yeah.
grow up with that experience. And I mean, I'm not religious at all, but like, I identify with that pretty, like I get it. Like I get it. I wear a Star of David just to like honor those who have lost their lives in the Holocaust because 6 million Jews were killed and we would be such a bigger population if that didn't happen, but also I wouldn't be here if it didn't happen. So
Yeah, yeah. So let me say this. I love this guy. I feel like I keep forgetting that we're doing a podcast. I keep
I know we're just talking.
yeah, we're just talking now. I would encourage you to explore that.
Mhm.
explore your Jewish heritage.
I definitely will. I have this. There's a trip called Birthright Israel that I was planning to do this past year. COVID happened, but before I'm 26, I get to go to Israel for free. So
go,
yeah,
please
I'm
do
gonna
that.
go.
Yeah, do that because I think it's important to know where we came from. I recently did the ancestry DNA. And so I got to learn more about where I came from or my people came from. And those things are so important that we can tie back to our history, that we can say, I'm more than my contacts here, that I stand on the shoulders of people, who were and who still are because I'm here. And so I didn't just show up into the world, but I was, it's different to just show up and to be sent, and so when I think about, for me as a Christian, I think about Jesus was sent, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And so him being sent to the world to live among people and to, do all those things is one thing than to just show up. I don't think anyone just shows up, but we are sent. And to believe that you are sent changes how you treat your life and the lives of others. If you believe you just showed up, it's like whatever. But if you believe you were sent, you walk in the earth differently because of that purpose on your life. And so so my encouragement, learn more about it. I want to hear all about it as you learn more about your lineage and your Jewish background. That'll be great. And to participate, oh my God, to participate in Passover and
I've
a
never
Seder,
done Passover, so I need to do that.
you got to do that, okay? And to sit at a table where somebody's asking the 5 questions. Listen, I'm giving you too much, but do that. And see, that's the whole thing. That's not my background, but I got to be exposed to that and to see the younger person ask the older person the 5 questions. Why do we celebrate Passover? All those things are so rich. Those cultural and heritage pieces that are just, to me, I felt great connection and passion because of that. So yeah, so you got to do that. Okay.
It is about that time for rapid fires.
Uh-oh.
So,
okay.
just very off the dome, the first thing that comes to your mind. These are very trivial questions, like what's your favorite color? So just whatever happens, happens.
Okay.
What's your favorite color?
Black.
Love that. Favorite movie?
Color Purple.
That's such a good movie.
It is.
I cried when I watched it because Oprah, man.
Man, Oprah's no joke. When she came out, is it the part she came out of prison or when when she comes home finally?
Well, I cried when she kissed that one lady.
Oh.
That was Oprah, right?
No, that was Whoopi. You talking about Whoopi? You talking about Whoopi? Yeah. yeah. Because she didn't feel love. She wasn't loved her whole life, and that moment she felt love. And that was Suge Avery. Listen, I watched the movie like 90 times, so trust me, I know. Okay, I watched it like 100 times more than you, so I know probably most of the lines there. Anyway, that's another story.
No, it's a great movie.
Yes, it is.
What did you eat for breakfast?
Oatmeal.
Love that. What's the first song that pops in your head?
There's an old song that just came in my mind right now, and I love it, and I don't even know why I love it. It's called Candyman, and it's by the oh man, it's like whatever group Rick James produced, and it's like it says, "When I wake up in the morning," and it's just like this one. I see breakfast on my bed, and so anyway, I get this really good burst of energy when I hear it. I don't even know all the words except the chorus and whatnot, and so it's so cool. It's like anyway, look it up, okay?
I'll look it up immediately. Name of your first pet?
Tiffany.
Okay, what was Tiffany?
Tiffany was a cat, and yeah, Tiffany was a cat. Now, this is the funny thing. I'm totally allergic to cats and dogs right now, and it's something that happened in my adult years, but Tiffany was a cat, my mom's cat, yeah.
Are you a cat person then?
You know what? I don't know. I like both, but I've been more around cats than more, and Tiffany was an Angora Persian.
We always find each other, the cat people.
The cat people, right? It's like, meow, we're connected.
Exactly. Best childhood memory.
Oh man, I would say my 13th birthday. It was nothing grand, but it just was special. My mom got me a store-bought cake. I was with my friends outside. My birthday's in the summer, and I still think I remember what I had on. I had on a white T-shirt and khaki shorts, and it was the most wonderful day.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's your biggest fear?
Greatest fear. Good Lord, that's it's supposed to be rapid fire. I'm thinking too hard.
They make people think for some reason.
Yeah, that's a good one because they're like I'm like thinking like fear of stuff or fear about like life, fear.
Can you point out
Um,
fear that you have?
you know what? This is crazy, a crazy fear, and I think I've never said this before, but I think about right now is that someone would feel unloved by me.
I don't think anyone could ever feel unloved by you.
I would hate for somebody to say, well, I don't feel he loved me.
Mm-hmm.
I would, that's a fear. I would hate for somebody not to feel that they were cared for or loved by me. Yeah, in some way,
That
you
is
know.
so sad.
It isn't it? Now that's crazy, but that just came to mind when you said that because I was like, it's not like I don't like snakes. I'm afraid of snakes. So if you brought a snake, I'm gonna like listen. It's not gonna be good, okay? But I was like, I didn't want to talk about like stuff like that because everybody has those kind of fears. But like I wanted to dig deeper, and that's what came to my mind. Like is like love. Like will people know that I actually care, and no matter where they came from or what background it was, they know that they were loved. Yeah.
Yeah. Biggest regret? Not going to Canada.
Well, no, you know what? I would say my biggest regret, and this is probably more, this is superficial. Well, not superficial. My biggest regret is that I did not learn Spanish the way that I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Took 3 years
Yeah,
of
I
high
wish.
school, couldn't say a single word other than hola.
Yeah, I'm like, I can ask you a few things like, ¿Cómo está? Bien, gracias. ¿Y tú? Then and I had so many Puerto Rican, Dominican friends who, they were speaking so much English that, when I was, I wouldn't want to force anybody to kind of speak Spanish on my behalf, but I so wish that I took more time with that. So there's two, learning Spanish, and the other thing was learning to play the piano.
Yes, I've always wanted to learn to play piano.
Yeah, so those are probably two of my regrets that I wish I had more time or took more time or paid more attention. Yeah.
That's so weird because technically there's no national language in the United States and we
Hmm.
only know English usually.
Yeah, exactly. And
There's
I
definitely
wish
a lot of Spanish speaking people in this country, so I feel like that
exactly.
should be a language we know.
Yeah, and that's what I wish. I wish that I knew more Spanish because I just like to be different at times and whatnot. Yeah, to know another language and it's just powerful. Yeah.
What's your midnight snack of choice?
Oh Lord. Midnight snack of choice. You know what? These days it's changed over the years. It used to be salt and vinegar potato chips, which is weird, but it's popcorn now.
You can't go wrong.
You cannot go wrong with a little popcorn, and no, just not any popcorn, but homemade on the stove popcorn.
Oh, I've never had that.
Oh, you got it. Listen, my wife, she goes hard on that. Sometimes she'll just do it, and sometimes, like, if I just hint, she'll go ahead and make some. And we're like, man, we haven't had popcorn in a long time. And so then
Like
I'll
you're looking
smell
at
it.
it, you're like, I'm ready. But it's like
Yeah,
even
yeah,
the
I
popcorn.
smell it. I smell it. I'm like, yeah, so it's kind of like this moment. So yeah, so popcorn is probably, yeah, that's my thing. Yeah.
Worst subject in school.
Whoo, worst subject in school. It'd be funny if I said Spanish, right? But it wasn't Spanish. I did well, and when I was in the class, I always knew enough to pass the class. But Lord, to retain.
Well, my
I,
tactic was become friends with the Spanish speaking person and have them help you.
is that you want to do homework tonight?
Yep.
No, I think the um, hardest was science.
Okay.
It was science. It was science and math. Sometimes it depended on who was teaching. Uh, it really did. I had one teacher, Mr. Hanniford, and I struggled with Mr.
A
Hanniford.
German?
No, he was West Indian. Yeah, and I struggled in his class. Yeah, it was a rough science class. Yeah, but I passed.
Good.
Yeah, I got out of high school some way. You know? I'm sure I owe them a credit or two, but anyway. But I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
Me with the ACT, I got a 14. I'm not going back. I got in.
Okay. It's like I'm here. So
Another language.
okay, in another language. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what was the next question you got for me?
Are you satisfied with your episode?
I am super satisfied. This has been refreshing just to have this conversation. I love what you're doing here and giving people just some free space just to be and say what they feel and to also share yourself and whatnot. And so I think you have a wonderful personality and definitely, a lovable person. And so thank you so much for seeking me out and inviting me to be a part of this.
I did track down.
Yeah, hey, if you listen, you did it. You got me. I'd love to do this again sometime in the future.
Yes,
and
I definitely want to have you back.
Okay, well, I definitely want to make that happen. And then where do you put this at? Because I want to make sure I get like tuned in.
youtube.com/c/Claire's Universe.
Okay, so you know you're gonna have to like email me that, right? Email me that. So
I have one more really quick question though. It's so important. It's the most important question.
Okay.
Can you move Flat Mike back inside the building? I haven't got my picture with him yet.
Okay, I will take him. He's in the window. You know he's in the window?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that is so perfect. I will take him out of the window and get him back in the hallway. And when everybody's been
put
worried
a mask on him.
Exactly. He has on one too. But yeah, he actually has one on. But I'll probably get him.
Morrison's statue has a mask on it, and I was so confused.
Hey, listen.
I was like, okay, Mr. Morrison.
We are giving you the message all the way across. It doesn't matter. You gotta, because people like to get close to that statue. So 6 feet distance,
He's a person too.
We're just trying to take it to a new level and whatnot of safety. I tell you. Well, listen, I will do that. I'll make that happen for you. Okay.
For those of you who don't know, this man he's so narcissistic. He has he's a cardboard cutout of himself in his office.
I didn't do that. Let me just say that. So Linda, our former office manager, she did that, and it was so bad about it. They were talking about making multiple ones. That there were, yeah. So no, they didn't do it.
I'll take one.
Listen, I walked in one day and it was like surprise, and so the funniest picture is me standing by Flat Mike doing this. Like.
I think I've seen that.
Doing it together. It's somewhere out there, that picture. But yeah, that is crazy. So it's not me. Trust me, it's the people.
We love you so much that we just had to give us what we wanted.
Let me tell you the real deal. I wish Flat Mike was real Mike sometimes so I can have somebody to help me out with some of the stuff I had to do. So I want to like, come alive, man. Go out there and, go.
Two Mikes would be better than one, like I've said.
I know you said that earlier, but like I only want that Mike to like go like to meetings and stuff.
That Mike probably has stories though. Like people probably say things and he has like all the intel.
Exactly. Maybe Flat Mike's memory is better than mine.
Let's interview Flat Mike next.
Oh no. You're cracking me up.
The third square on the Zoom is Flat Mike.
Exactly. He's just there. You know what?
He's just like
exactly. I think I'm gonna get him and bring him home and sit him in a chair, and then I'm gonna do like chapel or something. Do you remember I brought him to chapel one time?
The first day.
He was just standing. Somebody took him out and stood there, and he was just stood there, and yeah, it was perfect.
That's when I knew that I was gonna love you.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to do that more so more people can have that love, okay? I'm sorry. Claire, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me and letting me be a part of this time with you. And I look forward to the next time I come back, okay?
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.